Hello, I am Anya Ramris. I am a rising junior at Amherst College, and I'm on the tennis team. So this is my first ever video, and I decided to do this because when I was 15 years old, I started a tennis blog where I analyzed matches, and it's called Ace Advice, www.aceadvice.wordpress.com. It's a very long name, but it's great. I've been working on it for a while now. But because of quarantine, I decided that I also want I also want to start speaking. I feel like for me that's a lot easier, and I think I can also talk a lot about the college tennis experience. Amherst College is a D3 college, but I'm hoping to get some D1 tennis players on here as well. So today the topic is what it means to be a father and a coach. My dad was my coach for the majority of my junior tennis career, and he's really shaped the way I play tennis today. So I thought a great first video would be to have him on here where I kind of just ask him some questions that I literally have never asked him before. So I think this is super exciting. So anyway, I'm gonna bring him on. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
So this is my dad. This is Ari Ramris. He has been my coach from junior tennis, and today he still helps me out a little bit in college.
A little bit?
Yep. And the reason why I wanted to bring him on here today was because there are so many really good pro tennis players whose fathers were their coach. And I have some examples written down. We have Wozniacki, we have Serena and Venus, we have Sharapova. Yes, it's pronounced Sharapova, not Sharapova. I'm Russian. Lisicki, Bob and Mike Bryan, Bartoli, loved her form. It was hilarious. Donald Young and Anisimova, who unfortunately her father did pass away, but he was her coach. So anyways, I thought, well, I didn't go pro. I mean, at least not yet, but I think I did pretty well in junior tennis. I got to a 5-star rating,
which is really, really good.
So I wanted to bring my dad on here and kind of just ask him some questions on how it is to be a father and a coach. Obviously, this is tennis themed, but this can extend probably to any sport. So my first question for you is, what is your background in tennis? What made you want my sister and I to go into tennis? Did you play tennis when you were younger? Have you just always enjoyed it? Like, what's kind of your background in the sport?
Yeah, so I played tennis my whole childhood, except I didn't know there was such a thing as junior competitive tennis. I didn't know there were USTA tournaments. I didn't know there was anything. I just took some lessons, played in high school, and enjoyed it, played in tennis camps. I was probably good enough to play in junior tournaments, but I wouldn't have done well just because I didn't practice as much as the kids who played in those tournaments. If I would have known that they existed, I probably would have practiced a lot more. I would have focused on it more. Mostly I played basketball. That was my main sport. Oh, well, and I guess I should say we were interested in that sport for you and your sister because it's just a good sport for girls, non-contact sport, and a sport where it's very objective and not subjective in terms of the results. It's very easy to see when someone does well versus just like that may not necessarily be as true in team sports where it may be harder to stand out.
Right. And I would
But
also
for basketball, I'm sorry, let me just continue. But comparing basketball, it's a lot of the same movements actually. So I actually wanted you guys to do basketball for cross training, but you didn't want to. But it's a lot of quick lateral side-to-side movements, running and jumping and stopping and starting. And I think it's a great cross-training sport for tennis.
Right. And I would also just like to point out that maybe the reason why I didn't want to go into basketball is because I am 5'3". So that would put me at a big disadvantage. I mean, I could play point guard, but not necessarily well, probably. If I'm going up against like a 6 foot like woman, I'm gonna get destroyed. So that's, I guess, one nice thing about tennis is being 5'3" doesn't necessarily put me at a disadvantage. I think maybe like on the serve a little bit, but overall, I'd say being on the shorter side isn't necessarily a bad thing. My next question for you is, why did you think that you would be a good coach for me? Because before you officially kind of became my coach, I did go to many different tennis academies. And the big issue was that I felt like none of them really understood me. I feel like they were kind of trying to change my form too much. I didn't feel like they were, actually like caring about me when I was on the court. That's kind of just like a big thing. I was wondering, like, why did you decide to step in and be like, hey, Anya, do you know what? I'll be your coach. And I remember that day you started writing on a piece of paper all these drills that you wanted to do with me. And those literally became the drills we did for the next few years until I went to college. Every single day we did those drills. So I was wondering, like, why did you think that you'd be a good coach for me?
Well, I think it was more of just we kind of bounced around a lot from coach to coach and never really found the right fit. And so I think it was more of a default.
You were the last option.
The last option, I think pretty much that was it. And also I think, by the time you had been coached by professionals for 5 to 10 years, we kind of knew the drill figuratively and literally. And like, we just took the best from each. I think, like, when I was writing things down, the best drills and the best ideas from each coach, and try to just make that into one practice.
Got it. Cool. Okay, so my next question is, I think I want to make this general, like across all sports, but if you need to specify to just tennis, you may do so. What are the do's and don'ts of being a coach?
That's tough. I would say being a coach, I think the hardest thing is walking a fine line between being tough and getting the most out of a player, and letting them have fun and building up their confidence. And I think the do is to try to walk that fine line, and the don't is to go on the wrong side of that line.
Right. Yeah, because the reason why I'm wondering is because you know how there's like the carrot and the stick analogy. I feel like you were definitely more of the carrot guy. Like when I was practicing serves with you and there was targets, I would get a food I liked for dinner if I hit those targets. And that really motivated me to hit those targets. And I ended up acing a lot in matches because it kind of reflected. But before you, my coaches definitely were more of the stick. I remember if I did something wrong or if I kept repeating a bad mistake, I would have to run 100 laps around the court or just, go down and do 10 push-ups. There was a lot more physical consequences if I didn't do something correctly. So I guess kind of going off of what you're talking about, how do you balance that carrot and the stick? Like, how do you make sure that I am getting, the tough love sometimes, but also, being rewarded when I deserve it?
It really depends on the personality of the kid, because you were always a kid who always had a lot of energy and like always wanted to do your best and worked really hard all the time. And so
I know.
so I didn't really have to push you too hard usually. It was more of just, since you were so hard on yourself, it was more of balancing that out by trying to build your confidence up, by telling you how good you were and how good you could be.
Got it. Was there ever a time when you were like, I just want to make her run? Or did that ever cross your mind?
Well, with Susha, your sister.
Oh yeah, my sister's like the opposite personality as me. And I think my next video, I'll be having a conversation with her so you can kind of get to know her more and her personality. But yeah, we're definitely different. But what about her personality made you want to give her the stick more?
Well, she was very like laid back and maybe wasn't as motivated, and so I felt like I had to push her a little more, especially because when you guys were training together, I wanted to it wasn't fair to you if she wasn't putting the same energy into it that you were. And part of that just was because a lot of it just was easy for her. Maybe she didn't even have to push herself that hard.
Was there ever a time when you didn't feel like you were a good coach for me? Was there ever like a tournament where I just lost all the matches and we were driving home? Or at practice, I was, yelling at you because I did that all the time? Was there ever a time when you were like, this just doesn't feel like it's working? I'm her dad. I didn't actually play, that much when I was little. I don't know enough. Like, was there ever that doubt in your mind when you were my coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much every time you lost, I mean, as a coach, you're like, what could I have done different? Like, not just in terms of at the practices, but are you running out of steam because you don't have the right food or the right, you're not hydrating the right way, or are you drinking too much water and not enough Gatorade, or is it, you're always looking at things that are you not practicing one shot or a different shot enough. So you're always blaming yourself a little bit, but mostly blaming you.
Yeah, I did get that a lot. There's one very funny story. I was playing in my first ever ITF where there was an umpire and everything. It was super exciting. I was 15 or 16. My hair was cut to here. And I was playing this girl. She was like top 10 in the nation. I think she was 5 in the nation or something like that. And I was up a set in 2 match points and I lost. And I remember after the match, you checked my cooler to see if I ate my banana between sets. And I did not. And just background, I hate bananas. They're absolutely disgusting. But my dad had a rule that I had to eat a banana between every set. But I just couldn't. Like, I just can't eat bananas at all. So I didn't. And I remember my dad found the full banana in my cooler and he got so mad because I ran out of steam. So was that a moment where you blamed yourself for not telling me, more often, like, make sure you're like fuel yourself? Or did you just think that was all my fault?
It was all your fault.
It was all my fault.
So like as a coach, my philosophy was there's certain things that you just have to do every single time, but then if you lose, you lose. But if you do everything right in terms of like preparation and like if you eat and drink and sleep the right way and you practice the right way, you think on the court, if you do everything right but you just miss your shots, but they're good misses, or the other person just beats you because they're better, that was always fine. Mm-hmm. The only time that I got angry was when you didn't do something that you knew you should have done, like in doubles, not communicating with your partner, or not standing in the right place, or not, things that are just like fundamentals.
Right.
Like boxing out and basketball.
Right. Were there any regrets that you had as my coach? Anything that you wish you did not do?
Yes, a lot. I would have done things a lot differently if I started today. I was definitely too focused on, I think it was too much travel, too many tournaments, cared too much about wins and losses. If I had to do things over today, it would be just mainly playing fewer tournaments closer to home and just focus on improving and not worrying too much about wins, because the wins come eventually.
Right.
And I think it's very easy to burn out in tennis. So by keeping practices pretty short and not over practicing serves to kind of preserve your shoulders, stuff like that, But I still think you particularly may have peaked a little bit too early. I would have focused more on injury prevention, more on weightlifting, just getting your body stronger, because your body definitely broke down around junior year of high school.
Yeah, just a little background on that. So when I said I became a 5-star, that was halfway through my sophomore year. And then literally a few weeks later, I get this pain in my hip. And it's an injury that I have sometimes still today. So like 4 years later, I'm still having it. Obviously, it's a lot better now because I did a lot of physical therapy and I'm doing a lot of strength training like you were mentioning. But I pretty much had very uneven hips and very unequal strength in each of my legs. My left leg was so much weaker than my right. And in general, I didn't have any hamstrings. I could not do a bridge pose, where you just lift your hips up. I physically could not do that. So I was a 5-star tennis player with 0 hamstrings, bound to get injured. So I got injured. My ranking plummeted. Luckily, I was able to commit before, my ranking got too low because I was starting to, play a lot less tennis and start focusing on my strength and going to physical therapy. But I definitely agree with that I did peak too early, and we didn't focus on my fitness as much as we should have. Is there a specific age you think where if a father is your coach, where they should put their daughter or son starting to play in like more competitive tournaments and like travel more often than they usually would? Is there like a specific age when, you ramp it up?
Tennis is tough because a lot of it, at least in back in the day when you were there, it was based on like points, and you had to travel somewhat to get the points,
right,
in order to get into the next big tournament. And if you never did any of that, then you just never played in any big tournaments. You never got any points. So the system almost forced you to do a certain amount of playing and traveling. But the more you can avoid that, I think the better. And the longer you can avoid it, the better. Realistically, I don't think college coaches really pay much attention until probably you're a junior in high school anyway. So I don't see really any reason to do much traveling unless you really have to until then.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, my first tournament was when I was 8 years old, and I like knew right then and there that I was gonna be good. But a lot of players that definitely became my rivals later on, they really only started to come into the scene around 13, 14. And I was like, who are you? I've been around here for 5 years. Like, I'm the queen here, But then they come in, I've never heard of them before, and they beat me. And I'm like, what the heck? And, a lot of those girls did go D1. So I guess for me, I would think around like 13, 14 is when, you start, ramping it up, playing more competitive tournaments and like accumulating those points.
Yeah, I think the main thing for tennis is getting your fundamentals immediately so you don't practice bad habits. But when you're super, super young, get really, really good coaching on fundamentals and strokes. And if your stroke is clean, at that point, you're going to be getting 10,000 hours of hitting the right way. And even if that's mostly just in practice, you're going to be in good shape.
Who is your favorite tennis player? It could be a man or a woman, or it can be both if you have, 2 favorites.
I mean, growing up, it was McEnroe. And I wanted to be just like McEnroe. I got his racket. I served like him, although I was a righty and he was a lefty. I like players who have character and have fun on the court. And so I would say today's version, probably Kyrgios.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, he's crazy. I love it though. How about on the women's side, anyone?
On the women's side, it's hard to say because Straffa kind of started that trend of really not showing any emotion at all on the court. And I feel like a lot of players followed that, and it's not fun to watch. It may be effective,
Right.
Yeah, but it's not really fun to watch. So on the women's side, I like players who have variety. I would say, who's that girl with the big kick serve?
I was just about to, the Ashley Barty.
Barty. Yeah, I would say probably on the women's side, she's my favorite. I think she has a good attitude on the court, and I like her variety a lot. To me, variety is really underused on all levels of tennis. So,
Yeah.
so that's just probably my favorite.
Yeah. You know, I was secretly hoping you would say I was your favorite player, but, you know, I can only hope for so much. So.
Oh, I thought you were talking about professionals, but
Well, I didn't
non-professional.
specify. What is the benefit or challenges, and both, benefit and or challenges of being a parent and a coach at the same time?
I think the benefit is that, just like you said at the beginning, it can be effective because, and I think the reason why a lot of pros have their parents, like Andy Murray, coaching them, is because they have the coach who cares the most and will pay attention the most. But I think it's very challenging because what you want to do as a parent is just to, just a root for the kid, congratulate them, win or lose, without saying anything negative, and just always support them, and just give them a pat on the back and just say, great job, and just leave it at that. But if you're also the coach, you can't just leave it at that. And you have to get into the negatives and things they can improve and things they screwed up, and you're a little more personally vested in every point. So you can't just sit there and enjoy it. So I think that the challenges are probably, if you can find a really good coach and you can afford it, which are two very big ifs, that's the way to go, in my opinion. But if you don't have the resources and you don't have a great coach who's close to you in your area, then you may not have a choice. And that was kind of what I think we kind of defaulted to, just not having a choice.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I think you've chosen a really good person to interview for your first show. So
yeah. I agree. I think you were a perfect first guest speaker on my first ever YouTube video for my Ace Advice blog, now also YouTube page. Please like and subscribe. I think this is how that works. I'm not really sure. I think I have to add those buttons at some point. But yeah, I'm going to be discussing what it's like to be a D1 athlete versus D3 athlete, what it's like to be a woman tennis player versus male tennis player. I'm going to bring my sister on and we're going to talk about what it's like growing up, playing junior tennis, since I did mention I started playing my first tournaments when I was 8 years old. And I'm hoping to bring my teammates or other college tennis players onto here, and we can kind of have a really nice discussion about what it's like to be in college sports. And then once professional tournaments are starting up again, I am going to start analyzing matches and giving some really good advice, where I'll also be continuing my blog. So if you want to read about it, you can there. But I'm also going to be starting to talk about it and analyzing through video, and really giving you guys some really good advice. And maybe, I'll, go on the court too and demonstrate myself some strokes and strategies and etc. So yeah, please stay posted. Please like and subscribe for more. Anyways, thank you so much for being my first guest speaker.
Is the check in the mail?
The check is going to be a hug after this. Yeah. I'm sorry. All right.